Hello class, today we're going to go ahead and look at dividing polynomials using synthetic division. On our last notes video, we looked at how to divide polynomials using long division. So just as a remember, let's do an example of long division first. So we have z squared plus 2z minus 24 divided by z minus 4. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to say z times what will give me z squared? Well, z times z. Okay, so z times z is z squared, and then negative 4 times z is minus 4z. And then I remember when we go ahead and do this, we always subtract. Okay, so I'm just multiplying each part by a negative 1. So this is 0, 2z plus 4z is 6z. Bring down the negative 24. Then I would have z times 6z, so it would be plus 6, because 6 times z is 6z. 6 times negative 4 is negative 24, and remember we always subtract. So if I do that, they would cancel, and I have a remainder of 0. So my solution is z plus 6. Now I'm going to go ahead and do synthetic division. Okay, the way we do synthetic division is you look at what is doing the dividing, so the z minus 4. Okay, and so I always do the opposite sign of it. So I take 4 and put it in a little half of a box off to the side. Then I go ahead and write all of the terms, the coefficient in front of the term, down. I do not write the actual variable. So in front I have a 1, z squared, so I write 1. Then I have 2z, so I write 2. Then I have negative 24. Draw a line, leave some space. So the first thing you do is you always bring down that first value, so it's 1. So I take 4 times 1 is 4. Then I go ahead and add. 2 plus 4 is 6. Then again, I go ahead and multiply. I have 4 times 6, which is 24. And then once again, I add, and I get 0. The last number is always your remainder. Okay. And then you just work your way up for your answer. This is always your constant or your c term, and then this is x. So, or in this case, we're talking about z, I guess. We have variables of z. So z. So really, I have 1z plus 6. That is my solution. Well, if you look, that's the exact same problem that I did before, and we got the same answer. They are the same. So synthetic division, some people like it because it seems like it's a little bit quicker, but other people also like long division, so it's your preference. So let's go ahead and do some more examples with synthetic. Okay, so use synthetic division to find the following quotients. So we're going to do the division. So I have my polynomial 2x cubed plus 3x squared minus 4x plus 15 being divided by x plus 3. So I always do the opposite sign. So it's plus 3, so I would write negative 3 in my little box. And now I just write the coefficient. Okay, so I would have 2, then 3, negative 4, 15. And then the way we get started is I go ahead and bring that first term down 2. Then I take negative 3 times 2, which is negative 6. So then we always add here. So this is negative 3. Then I take negative 3 times negative 3, which is 9. Then I add again, which gives me 5. Then negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. And once again, I'm adding, so this gives me 0. Remember, this last part is your remainder. This is your constant. This is your x. Well, then just work your way up. This is x squared. So you write your solution. 2x squared minus 3x plus 5, and I have a remainder of 0. So there it is, divided. Okay. Example 2. Same type of idea. One thing that you should notice in example 2, though, is we have an x to the 4th, x to the 3rd, and then an x. So we have to put in a placeholder for x squared. So we have to remember to do that. So setting up my synthetic, it's x plus 2, so I'm going to have negative 2, negative 2, and then I go ahead and write out my terms. So I would have 6, 15. Now I have that placeholder for x squared, so 0, negative 28, negative 6. And remember, we get started by bringing down that first term, so I have 6. Negative 2 times 6 is negative 12. I would add these to get 3. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Once again, I add those to get negative 6. Negative 2 times negative 6 gives you 12. And I add negative 28 plus 12, which gives me negative 16. Negative 2 times negative 16 gives me 32. And when I go ahead and I add those two, I would get 26. So this case, I do have a remainder. So this is my remainder. This is my c term, or my constant. This is x squared, x to the third. So let's just go ahead and write out our answer. It's going to be 6x to the third plus 3x squared minus 6x minus 16 plus, remember your remainder, 26 over the divisor, so x plus 2. That would be my solution for example 2. Okay, let's go ahead and look at example 3. Example 3 now is a little bit different. If you look back at our previous two examples, it was always a 1x plus a value. And same thing with example 2, it was 1x plus a value, so plus 2. But now, if you look at example 3, okay, it's 2x plus 1. So whenever you do not have 1x, you need to divide out by that leading coefficient. So I have to divide everything by 2. Okay, so I divide everything by 2. So what this is going to give me is it is going to give me 4x to the fourth minus 2x squared plus, well, x divided by 2 is going to be 1/2 x plus 2. Divided by, now divide each part here by 2, x plus 1/2. Now it's a problem similar to what we have done. So in my box out in front, I would have negative 1/2 and then I write all my terms. Notice there's no x to the third, so I have to put in a placeholder for x to the third, and I think that covers it all. So I would have 4, 0, negative 2, 1/2, 2. And I go ahead and bring down that 4. Negative 1/2 times 4 is negative 2. Add these together. I get negative 2. Negative 1/2 times negative 2 is 1. Add negative 2 plus 1, which gives me negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 1/2 is positive 1/2. 1/2 plus 1/2 is 1. And negative 1/2 times 1 is negative 1/2. And so I get 3/2. Okay. Now, since we did that division by 2, there's a little bit trick with actually figuring out what the remainder is. Okay, well, since you divided everything by 2 above, in order to figure out what the remainder is, you have to multiply it by 2. So when I do this, I will get that my remainder is 3. Okay. So the rest of my answer is fine. So I would have c, x squared, x to the third. So I have 4x to the third minus 2x squared minus x plus 1. And now my remainder, plus 3 over 2x plus 1. And there is my solution for example 3. Now would be a good time if you wanted to pause and maybe try example 4 on your own. I think that would be a great idea. Just pause and try example 4 on your own. Or take a break, write down any questions that you may have. But example 4 is very similar to example 3. So now would be a good time for you just to maybe take a little break, try 4 on your own. Okay. So looking at example 4, same idea. My leading term here, or my variable, or my value in front of x is not 1, so I have to divide everything by 2. Okay, so I would have 4 divided by 2, so I get 2x to the fourth minus 5 divided by 2, x squared. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so x plus 4 divided by 2, 2. Now I divide by 2 again, so I get x minus 1/2. Now I go ahead and set up my synthetic division. It's going to be the opposite sign. So it's going to be 1/2. Okay. Then I take all my coefficients, but I look, there is no x to the third. So I make sure I want to add that as a placeholder. So I have 2, 0, negative 5 over 2. No x. Don't write the x. Negative 5 over 2, 1, 2. Going to go ahead, start by bringing down that 2. So I have 1/2 times 2, which gives me 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1/2 times 1 is 1/2. Negative 5 over 2 plus 1. That's going to give me negative 4 over 2, and negative 4 over 2 is negative 2. 1/2 times negative 2 will give me negative 1. 1 plus negative 1 is 0. 1/2 times 0 is 0. So my remainder is 2. Okay, but what's the thing we need to remember here is that whatever we divide it by, we have to multiply our remainder by. So we divide it by 2. So our remainder is really 2 times 2, so it is 4. That is our remainder. And then this is my constant. Here's my x squared, and my x to the 3rd. So let's write out our solution. 2x to the 3rd plus x squared minus 2x. You could write plus 0, but we don't need to. And then plus our remainder. So 4 over 2x minus 1. And once again, write down any questions before we go ahead and move on to the back side. Example 5. Okay, it says the area of a rectangle is, and it gives you the polynomial to represent that, in square inches. The width of the rectangle is x plus 1. What is the length of the rectangle? Okay, so what I recommend, again, is just thinking about, well, what is the area for a rectangle? It's length times width. We know area, and we know the width. So we want to solve for L. So what equation helps us solve for L? Right, I divide both sides by W. Length is equal to area over width. Okay. So in this case, my area, and we are going to go ahead and change this equation. It should be that this should be a plus 2. So on your notes, go ahead and change that so it says plus 2. So my area, to figure out the length, is equal to x to the 3rd plus 3x squared plus 4x plus 2 divided by the width. The width is x plus 1. I'm going to go ahead and use synthetic division. So use the opposite sign here, so negative 1, and then write down all the leading terms, the coefficients. So I would have 1, 3, 4, and 2. Bring down that 1. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. 3 plus negative 1 is 2. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. When I add these two together, I get 2. Negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. And then I get a remainder of 0. So my solution for this is my remainder, this is my constant, this is x squared. We were trying to find the length, and so the length is x squared plus 2x plus 2, and the label on this is in inches. There's my representation for that, for the length. Okay. And we have one last example. Example 6. The area of a triangular sail is, okay, they give us the area, square meters. The height of the sail is x minus 4 meters. What is the length of the base of the sail? Well, what I would do is think about what's the equation for my area of a triangle. Its area is equal to base times height divided by 2. Well, let's think about what we know. We know the area, and we know the height. So we're trying to solve for the base. So what I would do is solve this equation so we know what b is equal to. First thing I need to do is multiply both sides by 2. So I have 2a is equal to b times h. And I'm trying to solve for b, so I would divide by h on both sides. So my base is equal to 2 times the area divided by the height. So let's just go ahead and set this up. My base is equal to 2 times the area. So 2 times my area is 16x to the 4th minus 60x to the 3rd minus 28x squared plus 56x minus 32. All being divided by the height, which is x minus 4. So if I simplify this again, 2 times 16 is going to give me 32, x to the 4th minus 2 times 60 is 120, x to the third. 2 times negative 28 is negative 56, x squared, plus 2 times 56 is going to give me 112x, and 2 times negative 32 is negative 64, all being divided by x minus 4. So I'm going to go ahead and solve this using synthetic division. I go ahead and look. I have x to the fourth, x to the third, x squared, x, so I don't need any placeholders. Okay. So to set up my synthetic, it's x minus 4, so in my box I would have 4. And then my leading terms, my coefficients. So 32 minus 120, sorry, negative 120, negative 56, 112, negative 64. So I'd bring down that 32. 4 times 32 is 128. Negative 120 plus 128 is 8. 4 times 8 is 32. Negative 56 plus 32 is negative 24. 4 times negative 24 is negative 96. 112 plus negative 96 is 16. 4 times 16 is 64. Add those together, I get a remainder of 0. My c is 16, x is negative 24, x squared is 8, and my x to the third is 32. So I would write out my solution that the base is 32x cubed plus 8x squared minus 24x plus 16, and this was labeled in meters. So there is the length of the base of the sail. Okay. So write down any questions you have. Make sure you ask me in class. The next thing you're going to work on is the dividing polynomials using synthetic division worksheet. So go ahead and stop the video and have a great day.